Ethis is a combination of the words ethical and Islamic, right? So it's ethical and Islamic put together. And we started quite a long time ago, before there were regulations, in 2014. So a little bit of history. In 2014, I had a small community of Islamic finance enthusiasts in Singapore who formed around me and my friends, because we were promoting Islamic finance, giving courses, talks, and so on, bringing experts from Malaysia to Singapore, because Singapore had no Islamic finance. Until today, there's still very little Islamic finance in Singapore. So in the process of trying to educate and create the demand for Islamic finance, a community came together, and then they said, we understand what's riba now, we understand what's halal and haram at the level, but there's nothing for us to do. There are no products. So that's where we formed a private investment club called Club Ethis. Right? So that was in 2014. And I had lived in Indonesia for 6 years before that doing business, and I have my network and my relations over there. So we started matching projects and investors. That's how we started 2014. In 2015, 2016, we went online and we opened it up to everyone, not just their group of investors. And that's where we started becoming more of a platform. All right? So that's our history. And what we try to do, there's some quick summary here on our website. You can go to ethis.co. This is a screenshot of our website. Right? What we try to do is, of course, provide interesting, exciting projects, but they also need to be sustainable and ethical. You can see the branding here, the very first slide, the very first page. There's nothing mentioned about Islamic, but if you scroll down, obviously you will see Islamic is one of our core features, right? And we realized that this is important in terms of branding. This is a bit digression. If you're doing an Islamic business, it can be tricky sometimes. You want it to be known to be Islamic because you want to attract Muslims, for example, right? But the reality is sometimes even Muslims don't care, or sometimes they are even skeptical when something is Islamic first, right? That's what I notice sometimes, because unfortunately there are also scams and so on that people using the name of Islam, to exploit others. Yeah. So Alhamdulillah, over time we realized that our identity needs to be neutral. That's what we realized works better for Muslims as well as for non-Muslims. But at the same time, internally and clearly in our documents, everything is Islamic, inshallah. Yeah. Right. Right. So this is our mission and our vision. What we want to do, inshallah, is to circulate funds to the real economy. And this, I believe, is essentially what Islamic finance is about. Right? How do you circulate money to uplift the community instead of, unfortunately today, a lot of money is moving around in the financial world. And that's what creates all the macro financial problems that the world faces and all the economic booms and busts, right? So this is going back to real purpose of capital, to bring money to projects, to bring money to the real world. Yeah? And our vision is to uplift humanity. Islam is for humanity, of course, and Islamic finance is for humanity. And how we do it is through technology. Okay? Now, there's a lot to say about fintech and a lot of things we are working on, but for the purposes of this workshop, the focus will be on the crowdfunding aspect of things. Yeah? Okay. Now, here is a lot of details. I will not run through every word. I essentially already summarized this to you just now. If you're interested to know more, you can take a picture. But in summary, this is what the different regulators allow us to do in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Dubai. Right? And I briefly touched on it just now, what Indonesia allows us to do, what Malaysia allows us to do. I'll touch on number 2 and 3 since I did not really talk about it earlier. So for charity, for Global Sedekah, you can go to globalsedekah.com. That's our platform. Our focus actually is on corporate donations and corporate zakah. You can, of course, donate. You can go online and donate now, right? Using PayPal, or there's another payment processor called PayHalal, based in Malaysia. So you can donate. See whatever you like and donate. It's all online. It's very easy. But the focus has been and will continue to be actually on institutions, especially Islamic banks, because for two reasons. Firstly, they see it as a cost, or they're not set up to give charity. Islamic banks, for example, they need to give zakah, they need to give purification funds, but they're not set up for that. So we see that there's a very big gap there, and that's the gap we're trying to fill, right? And the crowd, of course, can co-donate with the institution. The institution typically will fund half the project, yeah, and then the crowd will provide the other half. So that's for charity. And Dubai, I can share with you that we actually spent a year and a half with the financial regulators, DFSA and DIFC, and we went round and round, and we got some in-principle approvals, which were then rejected and taken back and so on, because they didn't know how to regulate us, and they didn't have a licensing regime for what we were doing or what we wanted to do. So in the end, we went to the Dubai Land Department, because they are the ones who control the real estate industry in Dubai. They manage all the monies going in and out of property projects. When you buy a house in Dubai, you pay a down payment in Dubai, it goes to the regulators, it doesn't go to the developer, right? Some of you may be aware of that. So we approached them, and alhamdulillah, they have approved us under their program called REIO. Yeah, so here, inshallah, we'll be launching in 2 months' time, where you can provide last mile financing for projects. Yes. So in Dubai, there's a platform called Smart Crowd. They do something like a REIT. Yeah, you can buy projects, you can buy units, properties, and then you can sell it in the future, or you can earn rental income from it. Yeah, that's called Smart Crowd. But what we do is under construction property, and the financial regulators were not able to provide a solution for us to start. Yeah. So inshallah, this will happen in 2 months' time. Dubai Land Department their role is to identify projects, approve projects, and put it on our platform. So it's not our role to screen the projects for Dubai specifically. It's a special case. So they will screen, they will identify, they will risk mitigate and so on, and then pass it to our platform, right? And all of it is with collateral. I think 150% of the capital investment value. What happens is a project is 70% completed, the cash flow for the project is weak, developer needs some money. So that's where they will go to the land department. Land department will go to do the screening and either reject or approve it for the platform. Your money goes, that you invest in these projects, it goes to the land department's escrow or holding account, right? And they disburse it based on the project's progress, right? So this is a special case that hopefully will happen soon as well. Because Dubai today, the property market is in not a good state. So the land department needs to find ways to increase investment into Dubai. And this is one way they're doing it, right? And based on the structure that they have with the collateral and so on, although the market is not good, but in this case, we have assets and collaterals. So in the worst case scenario, where the developer is not able to complete or pay back, the land department still has money. The land department will take over the project and continue the project. That's how Dubai does it. It's very unique. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. Right? So based on that, we are comfortable with the risk that is being that our investors are exposed to, and inshallah this will start soon. Right? For Qatar, I think some of you asked me. For Qatar, we are talking to the regulators, and we cannot guarantee that we will get an approval, but looks highly likely that it can happen quite soon. And for Qatar, it will be for local projects as well as foreign projects. Yeah. So hopefully before Eid, we are trying to get a license here or an approval in Qatar.
What about the Security Commission in Malaysia? Did they ask about the security deposit or the freedom capital?
Yes. Oh no, there's none. They approve it based on our submissions and our business plan, not based on paid-up capital.
The business plan toward the Security Commission of Malaysia.
Yes.
Will approve for the security and feasibility of the business. Then you are able to invest in the project.
Yes, we need to get a license first. In Malaysia, the question is about Malaysia, right? So for Malaysia, what happens is they open up for submissions for licenses. The last round when we submitted, I think there were like 100 companies that applied, and they gave 7 licenses. So it's based on business plan, interview, credibility, track record, and so on. Then they issue the license. Yeah.
And how would they control the financial transaction?
They don't control. They just put certain requirements. So in Malaysia, all the money must go to a third-party trustee, and that's the main control.
Okay. Who is the trustee for crowdfunding?
Different companies have different trustees. For us, our trustee is called Amanah Raya. Amanah Raya. They're one of the biggest trustees in Malaysia. Yep.
So money, let's suppose we did the transaction from Qatar. The first money will receive in Malaysia.
In the trustee.
In trustee.
Yep.
Then the trustee will release the money toward your
Projects.
project.
Once we hit the funding
The
target,
project or first they release to your account. Then
no, projects.
Project. Right?
Yeah. As a platform, we don't touch the money.
You will touch the money.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So the important point, as a platform, we don't touch the monies. There are certain routes, usually is through a trustee, a third
How will you get
party trustee.
percentage from this?
The trustee will pay us our fees. Yeah.
Everything from the trustee.
Yes. Everything from the trustee.
Transaction in Malaysia.
Yes.
Even though you get your share, you have to get your fees from trustee.
Correct.
Trustee will control the project.
No, the trustee will control the money.
Money.
Yeah, not the project.
Project also.
Project is the project owner who will control, and the outcome of the project depends on the project owner, not the trustee. Not the trustee. The project owner will control his own project.
Yes,
Yes,
but
yes.
under the trustee is going to release the money for this project.
Not based on project performance, based on once you hit the target, right? Let's say we're trying to raise 1 million, 500,000, 200,000 comes in, is kept in the trustee. If in the time frame you don't raise 1 million, this is important mechanism for crowdfunding in some countries. If you don't hit the target, then the money is refunded. Yeah. If you hit the target, then the trustee will release the money to the project.
So direct to the owner account.
Correct.
Trustee will release the money back to the owner account.
Yes.
So it is not in your account?
Yes. It's not in our account.
Account.
No.
The trustee account.
Trustee account.
Oh.
The 6% that you are getting, are
Yes.
you sharing it with the trustee? Or just-
Trustee has some costs. We will have to pay the trustee cost annually and per transaction. Yeah.
And is trustee will get the cost project to project basis, or you have some sort of MOU with the trustee, they will get the
Yeah, I mean, every country is different, every trustee is different, but in general, for us, we pay an annual fee to the trustee and a percentage of transactions.
percentage of the transaction.
Yep.
Any idea about the transaction fee?
Sorry?
Any idea about the transaction fee?
In Malaysia, 0 point something percent.
0.2%.
0 point, I think 0.2, yeah.
In UK, we are getting 0.2% for the trustee.
Sure. Yep. Sorry?
So you will not stop the project till it reaches the amount?
Yes. So I don't have this in the slides, but this is a feature of crowdfunding. There are two types of fundraising mechanism. One is called all or nothing. That means if you hit the target, then the money goes out to the project. If you don't hit the target, the money the project doesn't get anything. It's refunded. Okay, that's called all or nothing. And then the other side, you have keep what you raise.
Who is responsible for the time?
This is depending on regulations. So in Malaysia, it's all or nothing in the sense that you need to reach 80% of the target. If you hit less than 80% of the target, money is refunded. Okay? And they give, I can't remember, I think 30 days, right? 30 days to raise the funds. If you cannot complete, you can extend by another 15 days, you can extend another 15 days, total 60 days. Yeah.
Maximum they will wait for you, for your feasibility, for your plan project will happen 60 days.
60 days.
What's the other kind?
All or nothing or keep what you raise. Keep what you raise.
What you raise.
Yeah. So whatever amount is raised, even if it's 10%, 20%, some countries allow the issuer or the project owner to take whatever is raised, even though it doesn't hit the target. Yeah. Some countries, they don't allow it. It's just, how the regulators choose to regulate the market. Yeah. Okay. All clear? Now, where are we right now? I'm being very transparent. I just wanted to share with you because our journey, I think, is important because we are one of the first few, and we hope that whatever we go through will help the industry to grow because you can learn from our experience, the good and the bad, right? So in Indonesia, we actually were running since 2015 all the way until late 2019 without a license. Right? We have been running all this while without a license because there were no licenses available. And then when licenses started becoming available, it took a long time. Yeah. Alhamdulillah, now we are licensed in all the markets that we operate in. Okay. So sometimes the challenge is when you're a first mover, like Uber, when it started, everywhere you became illegal at some point in time before it became legal again. Right? So this is the challenge because before it's regulated, there's higher risk of scams. Alhamdulillah for us, our reputation remains intact. People invest in our projects, they get their profits, and until now we are at a different level because we have licenses.
Crowdfunding is a part of any holding company or single-handed they are doing the business in Indonesia?
Also?
You give example, the first 9 months, the first 1 year, you did the activity without license.
For the past 5 years.
First 5 years.
Yep.
The first 5 years without license. So nobody in control, nobody is seeing the transaction.
Yep, it's all internal controls.
Yeah, you control, your own control.
Yes.
So how the company Indonesia allow somebody, because as per my knowledge, if you have a holding company, then you can sister concern company do the investment for this sort of project.
Yep.
Because you already have a license activity in a legitimate way in any country. So second activity, because at that time in Indonesia, they did not open this activity because they didn't know about the financial circle.
Yep.
Then after that, after 5 years, they look about and they open new window in the financial side.
Okay.
But during the 5 years, you are working with the solely crowdfunding, the license or name, or you have any other holding company, sister concern company.
No. So, okay, I'll respond to this quickly. That we have to move on, and I think we're going to have a call also, so we can discuss in more detail. Because if not, I know you have a lot of questions. But in Indonesia, we did it basically out of Singapore, and we talked to the regulators, and they said as long as you don't touch the monies, it goes straight to the project. We will not stop you, right? So that's what we did for 5 years until we got license. Yeah. Okay. Now this is a proof of concept. This is what we accomplished in 5 years. It's not hundreds of millions. It's $7.5 million. This is what we have done as a proof of concept, and it took us 5-6 years to do it, right? And right now, today, with a license, things have become very different. I'll share a bit more about that. But I wanted to show you 2 points. One is the geographical diversity of our investors. We have had investors from 60 countries, majority Singapore, that's why we started. Malaysia, Indonesia, Dubai, Brunei, all the way to Germany and Canada. I would say 90-95% of our investors are Muslims based on their name. Right? I mean, we don't ask them what's your race, what's your religion, but based on name, they have Muslim names. And Alhamdulillah, I believe this is, as I said yesterday, this is a very, very new behavior in the Muslim world, where we have 1,300 investments done purely online. Almost all of them have never invested in Indonesia before. Majority have never been to Indonesia before. They never met us before. And based purely on information they see online and our track record, they invest. All right? So I think this is a very interesting proof of concept. And inshallah, this year with our licenses, we will need to scale up very, very quickly. The second point is about bigger investors. Right? Now, first point, 80% had investors from 10 countries. So you have one project with investors from 10 countries coming in Indonesia, and a lot more bigger investors. Last year, this 7.5 million, almost half came last year. The rest all came in the first 4 years, right? So that's our growth. 4 years, we were doing small projects, one project at a time, waiting for licenses, just waiting and waiting for 3-4 years. And then when licenses were going to come, we start pushing for growth, and now we got the license. All right, so that's our journey so far. The license part has been quite challenging. Oh, sorry, before that, the impact is we have built 8,300 houses worth 3 million. So you can see we fund about 20% of a project on average. Yeah?
Which is more was equity or P2P?
All of this is Indonesia P2P.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we haven't started equity, we haven't started Malaysia, we haven't started Dubai.
In Singapore, peer-to-peer and liquidity available?
Peer-to-peer?
Both peer-to-peer and liquidity model available in Singapore?
Yes, available, yeah. But we're no longer in Singapore now because we got licensed in Malaysia, Indonesia, and we just focus on those 2 countries. We shut down Singapore. Singapore has no market. It has a lot of investors, and we're licensed in Indonesia, so the investors can just invest directly. Yeah.
Now, out of the 1,280 investments,
Yeah.
like what's your, let's say, loss ratio? Like 5% of investments went down, failed.
Okay.
You must have some kind of
Yes.
loss ratio, but it's overall.
Correct. So very good question. What is the outcome of these investments? Specifically, I mean, this is majority Indonesia, almost all Indonesia, small projects, South Africa and some in Malaysia. For Indonesia, for property in Indonesia, we've had, alhamdulillah, 0 defaults, right? No failures. But
Indonesia or Malaysia?
Indonesia, Malaysia, we don't really have projects yet. We have had 0 defaults. About 1/3 of the 7 million has been paid back. Yeah, about 3 million has been paid back, 2 million something. So 1/3 has been paid back, 0 defaults, but a lot of delays. Yeah, in property construction and development, there will be delays. So if you go to our website, we have very clear risk disclaimer. You can lose your money, although we have collateral. Usually, you can get something back, and we also have another clear risk statement where projects can delay by even up to 1 year, right? Because it's property, certain things can get stuck. So we've had, I think, in terms of the total amount invested, about 30% experienced some form of delay. Yeah.
The profitability other than the regular costs.
Yep. So in the end outcome, the return is so far all double digits. So from 10% to 12, 13% on an annualized calculation, sometimes 15, 16%.
2019, how much the average yield in a year?
In 2019, yield was about 12, 13%.
13%.
Yep.
Distribute the profit to the investors or the participants 30%.
Correct. Yeah, capital plus profit of 13%. Yeah. So usually it's in the range of 10 to 15%. Yeah, if you go to our projects, you will see it is pegged roughly, I mean, it's different every project, but it's roughly about 13, 14% a year. If there's a delay, then it goes down on an annualized calculation because the profit is the same, the timing is longer. Right? So when you divide it, your return goes down to 10%. Yeah? Sorry? The net profit, yeah.
This one is the net from after your fees also.
Net profit, yes. Yes. All right, so you can go to the platform. It's very easy to use. It's a very simple platform. We are building a more advanced one now with our licenses. We are also doing some fundraising for ourselves, equity fundraising, so that we can grow faster and we can build our technology faster.
On which platform are you doing equity crowdfunding for yourselves?
Oh, we're not doing equity crowdfunding. We're just raising from some of our network or some VCs at the group level. Yeah. And this is our charity platform. I think we just refreshed the design, so now you'll see it looks a bit different. And you just pay online whatever you want, and then you get updates and reports on what happens to your donation. All right, so this is the vision, and this is very important, something I want to share. The crowd is everybody or anybody who is willing and interested to put in money, right? We have been doing retail. Now we are doing more high net worth investors, and soon in the process we are doing institutions and even governments. Government funds are being invested through platforms today. All right, and this money goes through our platform to Indonesian property and to global charity. That's the two that we have done so far. These two are starting later this year. But our vision in 2022 is actually to have one consolidated platform, right? One single platform as global as possible, depending on what regulations, licenses we get by then, right? We want to have global access to projects. So imagine you go to the platform, we have a simple layer where you can input your preferences, right? So let's say your risk appetite, your preference for which country, whether you want emerging markets, whether you want property, real estate, or short-term, long-term, whatever. Put in your preferences, and then the system will then suggest these are all the projects that fit your requirements or fit your level of interest. Yeah. So then you can put in, $10,000 or $1,000 or $100,000 and spread it out globally. Okay. Today, that's not yet possible because of regulations and because of technology. We need a certain type of technology, which I'll touch on later on, which will allow for global exchange of funds at low cost and global exchange of value, assets, collateral, also at minimum friction. Yeah.
And do you charge for the global charity? Do you charge fees for that?
Yes, yes. We charge fees to the charity.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So if typically it can be as low as 3%, but depending on the charity and depending on the needs, if it's zakat, it can even be the full annual fee sometimes, which is 12.5%. Yeah.
Do you have any financial institution like a corporate investment on your platform?
Corporate investors? Just starting now. We have one.
Any name?
I cannot name them. Until they put in the money, then maybe I can name them. Yeah, but it's just an investment. It's a big investment firm in Dubai. Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of interest now from institutions. Okay, so this is our strategy, and in the Muslim world, there can be so many different strategies. So this is our specific strategy, but I wanted to share that what I feel would be a good strategy, if any of you are thinking of doing your own platform, is you will need one core market or one key market, which is large, which is stable, and which can give returns or can attract investors, right? So we believe Indonesia is that market for us. Yeah. Maybe you're not so familiar with Indonesia, but Indonesia, just quickly summarizing it, they have about close to 300 million people, huge population, is 90-something% Muslim. They're growing very fast. They have never gone into a recession since 1998. Every global recession, they are still not in a recession because the local demand is very big. In 1998, there was the ASEAN financial crisis, right, where rupiah crashed and everything crashed. Since then, they have been on an average of 4 or 5% growth every single year. And they're one of the few Muslim countries with very stable politics and not being caught in geopolitical issues. Yeah. So Indonesia is a very, very attractive market today. Unfortunately, most of the money that has gone to investing in Indonesia is from China. The Muslim world is a bit slow. China is very fast. They've flooded Indonesia with money. All the infrastructure projects are from China. You know, all the P2P financing is from China. But alhamdulillah, now there's increased interest.
Even after Corona?
After Corona, I think they want to invest more outside. I don't know. But Indonesia somehow supposedly have zero Corona. Coronavirus, inshallah, it will go away. According to some of my friends who are doing analysis, it'll take 2 months or so, inshallah, for the virus to disappear. Inshallah. So that's the first point. Scale up in Indonesia. If you're focused on Islamic crowdfunding, if you're doing your own business, you need to have one core market, right? Whether it's Indonesia, Pakistan, Nigeria, markets that have scalability, right? At the same time, you need to be where the money is as well, where there's credibility, where there's investors, where there's funds. So that's what we're doing. We are licensed in KL. We have a foot in the door in Dubai. We're processing in Bahrain. And we're talking to some European platforms to work together, inshallah. Yeah. Last point is, as I mentioned earlier, some countries or many countries are starting to give licenses, right? So alhamdulillah, we have good presence in this space. And usually when a OIC country has the license, we will get to know about it, either directly from them or indirectly from our friends. And if it makes sense, we would like to try and get a license there as well. Yeah. However, something to take note of, licenses can take up to 2 years to process. And sometimes there's no light at the end of the tunnel, like what happened to us in Dubai. If you go around, we end up with nothing. Luckily, we ended up with something else. Yeah. So this challenge of licenses is the main challenge, but it is a necessary challenge. If not, then the viability and the credibility of crowdfunding can potentially be spoiled, right? Because it's not properly regulated. Yeah. Sure.
In case of the licensing, depends on the country of the target.
Yes.
Some of them it's not possible, as you did in Indonesia, or as you use the example of the offer that exists, then you try to adapt your business to have a license, right?
Yep.
But this will not work in any way. I think.
Yeah. It depends on the regulators. Some regulators are not interested, or they're not looking at it yet, or they're just not. They don't have the infrastructure or the interest. Yeah. So you can try to talk to regulators who don't have the license, and sometimes they will listen. But usually you will have to put in a lot of effort for a long time. And because of your effort, eventually they open it up to everybody. So, you help to open it up, but you won't get special treatment when they do open it up. Yeah. Okay? So, I'm sharing with you some of our secret sauce, and somebody was asking about that, you were asking, I think, about deal flow. How do we mitigate the risk? Now, before I go into risk mitigation, very, very important is you are taking the risk, not the platform. It is your money, it's your investment, it's your contract, you take the risk. What the platform does, as I said, very light touch, fulfills basic criteria, I put it on the platform, let the crowd decide. Do you want to invest or not? It's up to you. We're just helping to find projects with this basic criteria. Some platforms go very deep, like what we try to do, because we feel it's a moral responsibility as well. Yeah. So for deal flow, what we're looking at is supply chain finance, also some form of consumer finance, more of purchasing. I'll go into detail, agriculture, wakaf, and all these different things. Right. So I'll go into one by one. For supply chain finance, this is basically financing of vendors or contracts or work orders and LOs and all these things, right? So typically, a small business will get a big contract or will get a contract from a big company or from the government, and they may not have the cash flow to fulfill the contract. But if they did complete it, they'll get some money, and the payment is more or less low risk because it comes from a bigger company or from the government. Right? Typically, that's what happens in supply chain finance. So what we can do and what we're trying to do, alhamdulillah, in Malaysia, we have a few already. We work with the issuer of the invoices or the contracts, right? So, for example, I'm a big property developer, right? I give an invoice to a cement company to supply cement to my project, and I pay him in 1 month, right? And he gets a profit of 20%, for example. Right? So as the platform, we go to the developer and we say, we can help your cash flow. Instead of paying him in 1 month, you pay us in 6 months. Right? We will pay him first, he will do the business, and when he completes it, you pay us. Right? So this is supply chain financing. We help to extend the time frame or timeline for payment for the issuer of the contracts. And we work with them so that we can collect the money from them directly. Because if the money goes to the SME, it can get misallocated and the money doesn't come back to the investors. Right? So that's the fastest growing form of business financing is supply chain finance for P2P, right? In Indonesia and Malaysia. Okay, so that's one thing to take note of. For consumers, this can be exploited, right? In Indonesia, a lot of P2P just give money to poor people to buy new TVs. They don't need a new TV, they already have TV. Right? But they want to encourage people to consume and they want to make profits from their financing. So this is something the industry is pushing. I don't think it's good. It makes people more consumptive. But what we want to do is we already have this social housing estates. One estate has 1,000 households. Right? What we'll do is we'll work with the local wholesaler to buy rice, for example, at a big discount because we are feeding 1,000 people. They're all going to eat rice. In Indonesia, everybody eats rice 3 times a day, right? They don't eat couscous, they don't eat bread, they eat rice. And we can get a good discount because you buy in bulk and sell them cheaper than the market, and everybody wins, right? All of you who invested in that stock of rice also make profits, right? So these are some avenues of doing it. Another one is agriculture. Agriculture is a little bit more complicated. We're still trying to figure it out. At this point, we are co-investing with government funds. So government invests in certain types of agricultural projects. We co-invest with the government, or the crowd co-invests with the government. So we depend on the government's screening and onboarding and risk mitigation. We just latch on and co-invest. All right? So these are certain things we're doing. Wakaf is another interesting area. In Indonesia, there's about, I think, close to 60 Wakaf hospitals in Indonesia, where the Wakaf hospital has a charitable social Wakaf component and a commercial component, right? So the Wakaf part is for poor people to get free services, and the other part is what makes the money. So the crowd can invest in that part, or you can donate in this part. Yeah, so that's something else we are working on as well, inshallah. But very, very important, in my opinion, in our experience, is to work with other people who are already doing this type of things and coordinate with them, co-invest with them, or or basically find a way to synergize to lower the risk, right? One example I can share is in Malaysia, we are working with a platform that does supply chain finance for government vendors. So if you're a Malaysian company, you want a government contract, even small government contracts, you go to the platform and you bid for it. It's a government platform, right? So we work with the government platform, like what I discussed just now, to extend the payment terms and fund those projects. But because we work directly with the platform, we get access to information, we get access to clients, we get direct payment coming to us from the platform. Okay, so this is very important. If you can find platforms that have data of their users, then there's a higher chance that you can understand their users and fund their users. For example, in China, Alibaba has their own crowdfunding platform, right? A P2P platform. I can't remember the name. It's a Chinese name. So Alibaba does huge transactions, and Alibaba's P2P company will fund the vendors on Alibaba because they know how much money these guys make. They know their inventory cycle. They know everything. They collect the money, right? So now they can just offer their own clients, we can give you financing, right? So that's what's happening in China. That's for deal flow. For investors, in my opinion, this comes first. In any marketplace, whether it's Karim, Airbnb, Amazon, whatever, the project side comes first. That is proven. If you don't have strong flow of projects or deal flow or products, the customers are not going to come. All right? But it's still a balancing act. Yeah. So for us, we've already secured very good deal flow, inshallah. So then now we start working on investors. And investors is basically all of you, any of you, right? The minimum is $700 US. Because we are licensed, we can also work with agents, stockbrokers, wealth management platforms, financial consultants, takaful consultants. All these people are all our introducers, right? So introducers are a very fast way to market because they already have their relationships. They already have their investors, yeah? Of course, then, as I mentioned, institutional funds are important for scale and for stability. If you know we have $10 million that are interested to go into these type of projects, we can focus more on the deal flow for these kind of projects. Yeah. Okay. So as a platform, it's quite challenging. Sometimes you have to balance two sides. If you have too many projects and not enough investors, the projects don't get funded, they won't come back to you, right? If you have too many investors, not enough projects, investors get frustrated. Every time you launch, it's sold out. Right? So we've had both problems, you know. Sometimes this problem, sometimes this problem. We have to balance it, right? So these are normal challenges as we grow. And the last point is about government initiatives. This can be good, can be bad, because governments can change their mind, politicians can change, policies can change. But if you find a good avenue to co-invest or to support government programs, it can be very lucrative and it can be safer as well. Yeah. So this is in summary our strategy of approaching these three stakeholders. Yes, brother, you have a short question?
Yeah, you told us supply chain, consumer, agriculture, work corporation,
Yeah.
the industry organization, ecosystem player, government entity, corporation, other fintech.
Yes.
At that time, the first time I heard in my life from last 17 years, one company doing the diversified investments at the same time. How you control, how your team is big in the reach? Because if the supply chain, you need the specialist people for the supply chain.
Okay, I understand your question. Right, sorry to cut you off. So his question is, how can you do so many things? You know, we don't have expertise to do all these things, right? I cannot be an expert in all of this. My team, only 100 people, 10 people on each vertical, right? So that's not feasible, which is why we have this second point. These people are the ones who actually do the pre-screening and the onboarding and the origination. Okay, give you one example. Just now I talked about the government platform. So we just work with them. We don't need to do so much, right? It's all already embedded in the relationship. For Indonesia, how do we get property developers? Do we have to keep looking for developers? Not really. We work with two parties. One is Islamic banks. Islamic banks give the mortgage. This is specific to Indonesia. Islamic banks give the mortgage. Government supports them, right? The government gives a subsidy for the mortgage for poor people. Okay, so that's what drives the whole Islamic mortgage, right? That's what drives the whole thing, right? Because in many countries, There's a demand for low-income housing or low-cost housing, but there's no financing, so they cannot buy. Yeah, so in Indonesia, they solve this to some extent, right? So what do the banks want? They want to help their developers complete the units. So they refer the clients to us to provide the construction finance.
So bank will work behalf of you. They will refer to some business.
Yes, they will refer some business. And they have all the data. As long as their customer allows it, we get all the data. Right? So it's easy for us.
Third party, irrespective of the investigation.
Yes, when it comes to the banks, yes. Then at the same time, we also work with developer organizations. So they have a pool of developers. They have access to about 2,000 developers in Indonesia today who are focused on the sector of social housing. Right?
In case of the bank, who is going to apply on your platform? Is it the bank or the developer?
The developer. The bank just refers the client to us.
I see.
Yeah. So when the client goes to the bank and say, I need construction finance, the bank say, go to Ethis.
As an investor, what should I ask an entity like you is related to screening and the validation of
Sure.
their project?
All right. Now,
Anybody can claim that I'm the best
course.
screener, I'm the best validator, but
yeah.
and investors are not financial experts as well.
Yes. Yes.
So,
So at the end of the day, I made this point earlier, but it's very important to repeat. Every platform is very different. There are platforms, P2P platforms, that don't even give you the name of the company, right? Usually these are the interest-based ones. So this company, this industry, some track record, these financial numbers, historical track record, and this is the profit rate or interest rate, and then you just choose and invest. And people even auto-invest. So those kind of companies can do it because they've already gotten very good track record, right? So then they just remove all the stories and just, these are the investment deals. Yeah? Company A, B, C, D, these are the rates, this is the risk profile, right? Some platforms have risk scoring, which may or may not be reliable. Yeah? So at the end of the day, you have to look at how long the company's been around, try to understand how they're doing. Especially regulated platforms, we cannot lie in terms of our performance, right? I cannot say, I give 30% returns when it's not true, because the regulators will know. We give them reports. We have to submit reports every month to all the regulators on performance, on payout, on default rates, and everything is all reported to regulators. So at the end of the day, you have to do your own investigation. It is there's a wide variety of platform types. And there'll be more and more hybrids, more and more creative ideas, more and more different approaches that will appear in future. So I think it's critical, although we were not regulated for a long time, but it's critical to only invest in regulated platforms. Because if you're not regulated, you don't know whether what they're telling you is true.
if I'm interested to invest in Ukraine, for example,
Yep.
do you think that your company will have a strategy in the future to work with other platforms in Ukraine, for example, that does this type of business, and then I will take my validation from you guys because I do trust you. Do you have that in your?
Yeah, I think our 2022 plan, if we have sufficient diversity here, if we have sufficient internal diversity of projects, then we may not work with others. But if we want to have more diversity and we don't have it in-house, then we'll work with others. So let's say we want to have a component for US investments, right? And we are not in the US. Then we'll look for somebody in the US to work with. Yeah. I will touch on our Indonesian projects in a short while, so you understand. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
You are using fintech. How you are benefiting of artificial intelligence blockchain?
Sure.
Because when you are talking about blockchain, that means transparency. That means any investor can track.
Okay, understand. So
this is one. Second,
okay.
Big data for screening.
Yeah.
So it is easy to find.
Very good questions. How do we utilize blockchain, AI, and big data? So there's a slide on that later on.
And AI.
AI, yes. We have a slide on that later on. I'll share with you. Okay. All right, just sharing. Alhamdulillah, got some awards. This was quite some time back, 2016. They gave us an award, Islamic Economy Award, for our pioneering work. And when I was there, I was, of course, happy to get an award.
When you were young?
When I was younger, I have two funny stories just to, break the ice a little bit. Everybody's very serious now, which is good. But if you see this award, it's a glass ball on some stands, right? And the glass ball is very heavy. So he fell down, yeah. So I brought it back to the hotel room and I opened, it didn't break. It just fell off, right? So I didn't know what to do with it. So I just put it in my hand carry. So when I went to the airport, my hand carry went through the customs and they panicked, like, what is this ball in your bag? It's strange, they've never seen a big ball like that in the bag. And they took it out and they're trying to figure out, what is this? Tell me what is this? They were very worried. I'm like, it's a glass ball. and they wanted to bring me to a room and ask me questions. I like, no, hold on. I took out this picture and I showed them. Then they said, oh, mashallah, okay, go. Okay, go. So alhamdulillah, just a story. But what happened was, we got an award, there was no money, but alhamdulillah, good recognition. And I told myself, I hope, this guy I know has a lot of money. Hopefully they give me some money at some point in time. And alhamdulillah, in the next year, I don't have it here. In the next year, they gave us a grant, $100,000 grant for Dubai Expo. They have some grant to support innovative social enterprises. Alhamdulillah, we got that, and we'll be in the Dubai Expo this year. Yeah, I know Dubai is not such a favorite in Qatar right now, but yeah, alhamdulillah. Sorry. Okay, so just some articles. In Malaysia, we are the first Islamic crowdfunding. In Dubai, we're under the land department. We're one of 4 initiatives. The other 3 are REITs. Yeah, just some articles to share. Right. Okay, so this is very important. I want to highlight, I mentioned this a few times, but this slide is specifically about that. Working with ecosystem is very important. That's my opinion. There are fintechs that say, we are against the incumbents. We're going to fight them. We're not going to work with them. But in my opinion, that's foolish because the incumbents, the existing institutions have a lot of value, right? And they have a lot of access, and they have a lot of knowledge, and they have a lot of experience, and of course, they have a lot of funds. So the first layer here, this company, this is Arachi Bank Malaysia. It's a Malaysian branch. Kuwait Finance House Malaysia and IDB in Jeddah, and Alliance Islamic Bank in Malaysia. These banks work with global sedekah, right? They provide sedekah zakat through our platform to charity. And then we get tracking, updates, and reporting for them. Okay? And all of them, when we first met them, they say, we want to do fintech. But something I want to share candidly is, if you're going to be doing an Islamic fintech startup, and you want to work with Islamic banks, usually it takes forever. It takes forever. Just to get one, alhamdulillah, I'm happy with these 4, but there are many others that we're still working on that's taking forever. Just to get banks to approve to give charity takes an average of 6 months to 9 months, right? So if you want to work with Islamic banks or any bank for that matter, you have to be aware the process is very long, especially if you are the first one doing this kind of thing with them. IDB took 5 years. We've been pushing it for 5 years, and alhamdulillah eventually did a pilot with us, and then it stopped, right? So because they had changed our leadership. Anyway, point is, although it's difficult, I think it's very important. And from here, it can lead on to many other things as well, yeah, inshallah. These banks here, the Indonesian banks, BTN, BRI, and Mandiri, they are all our deal flow origination partners for the developers, property developers. And these are some fintech, Maybank's payment and other things that we work with as well for various things. And these are other organizations that we work with. I'll jump to the next slide. Alhamdulillah, we were given this responsibility or amana of being one of the first few. So we believe that we have a duty to push the industry. From a pure logical business point of view, we cannot be the only ones doing it. The industry needs to grow as a whole for us to succeed, right? And also in terms of the vision of helping the Ummah, obviously we can't do it alone, right? There needs to be at least 1,000 different kinds of platforms like Ethis or better, inshallah. Yeah. Now, Indonesia, as I mentioned, has about, I think now 60 something, I can't remember, fintech companies under the Sharia Fintech Association Malaysia. And this is a group of Islamic Fintech Alliance, a group of founders who started early on about 4 years ago, who came together at that time, about 10 of us from different parts of the world. Yeah, and most of us are still leading this space right now. Okay, very quickly, these are our partners. Ronald and me, we have been partners from before. Alhamdulillah, he wasn't Muslim at the start, now he is. And Dr. Razif, this is something I want to highlight, especially for those who want to do your own business. Sometimes you just got to try your luck. And in his case, we tried our luck, and I spoke to him, and he invested and he came on board. He's the managing director of SME Bank Malaysia, right? During his time there, he made it an Islamic bank, and also made it from one of the worst performing banks to one of the best performing banks. And then he retired, and I called him, and we sat down, and he joined us. So today, I see this very clear trend of high-end professionals or top-line professionals in Islamic finance who want to do something more impactful, right? But maybe they're not naturally entrepreneurs. They've been working for so long. But when an opportunity comes up, they wouldn't even mind actually taking lower salary or getting equity in terms of payment. Yeah, that's our experience now. We have a few senior guys coming on board this year, about 5 senior guys who are at the top of their game. And they're all coming in on very friendly terms because they want to be part of something new. Yeah, alhamdulillah. Just quickly, I think I won't dwell too much, but this is very interesting. This gentleman here, Yusuf, is from Bangladesh. He's a Mufti. He's a PhD in Islamic finance. And he started 3 years ago as an intern. Now he's our COO and head of Sharia. So alhamdulillah, internally we are strong with Sharia. We have another Sharia officer internally. And in both countries, we also have external Sharia advisors, which is a requirement. Yeah, it's our CFO and our CTO. Our CTO, Amin, he's Algerian. I think I met one Algerian just now. Yeah, he's Algerian and based in Malaysia. Very strong with blockchain. Yeah, I'll talk about the technology in a short while. Every entity has its own leader. Shehzad, Al-Adrus, and Alim, because I can't lead every business. I have to lead the group. And these are some of our investors. Yeah, we had one VC that came in very early on in Singapore, more of a validation reason. They have 0.something%. This Swiss venture builder also has 0.something%. And these are other Islamic finance leaders. Some of you may know Daud Vikri. He's a very prominent individual. Rehan is a fund manager. He's head of Jadwa Global Business. And Dr. Shamsia is a Zakat and Wakaf expert. For those of you interested in Wakaf, if you're not aware, Singapore has one of the best Wakaf in the world. Yeah, you can go to the website if you want to see Waris, WAREES.SG. Okay, just very quickly, because I think there's a lot of strong precedents there that the rest of the world should look into, right? Especially for countries that do not develop their Wakaf. In Singapore, there's like 700,000 Muslims, right? Small population, 13% of the population is Muslim. And the country, from one end to one end, is 60 kilometers, right? It's very small. You can drive from one end to one end in 1 hour. You can drive around Singapore in 2 hours. Right? It's very small, but we have Wakaf land because it used to be a Muslim Malay country, and a lot of Arabs were there as well, Yemenis. So anyway, what she did during her time 15 years ago, they got a fatwa to say that you can sell all these small pieces of Wakaf land that are not usable because they're in a bad location or they're too small or whatever, and combine it into a bigger plot of land. That's a very key thing that happened. The second thing that happened was that they got the National Land Registry or Singapore Land Authority to acknowledge that Wakaf land is part of the legal infrastructure. Right? In Malaysia, it's not yet like that, which is why it's difficult. And in many countries also, I think, the status is not clear. Right? And from there, they did a sukuk and they started developing all the Wakaf land. Yeah? Today, Wakaf in Singapore is worth about, in US dollar terms, $1.5, $1.6 billion in a small country with so little Muslims and giving returns every year. All right? So you can check it out on waris.sg to find out more. So that's what she did in her time, and alhamdulillah, she's with us now. Sorry? Waris, WAREES. Waris.sg. Okay, technology. Good question just now. Now, what we have now, I'll go into a little bit of detail on the deep tech stuff, AI and blockchain. And maybe confusing to some of you who are not familiar with it, but I'll try to simplify it. But anyway, today, we are just a web platform. It's very simple. We can build a web platform like this in less than a month. It's very simple, and it's meant to just be easy for you to look at and easy for you to navigate, right? What we are building right now is we're using future-ready technologies or advancing technologies with AI and blockchain. I'll explain in the next slide. I think it's in the next slide. Oh no, it's not. Okay, it's my last slide. All right, I'll explain now. How do we use blockchain and how do we use AI? So I'll talk about AI first. This concept is very important. It's called RegTech. Okay, regulatory or compliance technology. Especially if you're doing an Islamic business, you really need to look into this because you do not want to be questioned, you do not want to be investigated, you do not want to have problems, as has happened to many Islamic institutions in the past. Right? Whether it's investment or charity, the KYC, know your client, background checks, anti-money laundering checks, and anti-terrorist financing checks, all these things are very, very important. Right? So that you can stand to scrutiny, you can stand up to scrutiny. If anybody wants to check, any government wants to investigate, or somebody makes a complaint or what, you have all this transparent and open. You can open your books, you can open your processes, and you can defend yourself. It's very important, especially if you're doing Islamic funds cross-border. All right? I really need to stress on this. It's very important. So that is where AI and blockchain comes in one sense. Yeah, they come in other ways as well. If we want to have one platform handling multiple regulators, so it's very complex, right? We'll need a team of compliance experts to do it. But what we have done is we do have a compliance expert, and he's a technology guy as well. He's the head of FinTech Malaysia. He's one of our Shura members, and we are developing a system that is based on blockchain and AI, right? How do these two things add value? Blockchain adds value by making it very, very transparent, and it can make it very automated, right? So everything is recorded, and the regulators know that there's no adjustment or changes because the word they like to use is immutable. It cannot be changed once it's recorded on the blockchain, whatever the blockchain may be that you use, or whatever protocol you use, right? And the second thing is we can embed rules that are fixed in the system. Once you create a blockchain system with rules, you cannot change it. You can do a new system to replace the old system, but you cannot, or you can add on to the old system, but you cannot change the rules that you already set. That is what makes it special for regulators, right? So as long as we set rules that the regulators agree to, then whenever they need to check, they can check, because it followed that exactly. There's no room for human intervention or mistakes, right? And what does the AI do? The AI learns, basically. It learns over time what's riskier, what's less risky, what countries, what patterns, and so on, and they will flag it to us, and then we can investigate, right? So that's what the AI is supposed to do. So far, are you okay with this? The middle one?
Yeah, big data, it is what we need.
Oh, big data, yeah. I think it's not in my slides, but I'll touch on that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is the basic use case for AI and blockchain in terms of compliance and risk, right? Now, this is the future, and this is already happening in some markets. My personal opinion is that it is not 100% ready to be used today, although there are more and more use cases. Okay, I'm talking about this concept of tokenization or tokenized securities. Anybody familiar with this? I will ask you to explain. No? No? Heard of it? Tokenization? Yeah? You heard of cryptocurrency? Yeah. Cryptocurrency, I would say today you can consider it to have two types. One is cryptocurrency based on concept and ideas, right? Based on storylines, based on white papers. With the asset is the concept. There is no other underlying asset. That is what has happened with many different cryptocurrencies. Most of the cryptocurrencies that people invest in the different exchanges are that kind of cryptocurrency. Like Bitcoin, for example, is the most famous, and all the others, right? There's many, there's thousands. Now there's another type of cryptocurrency that sometimes you call it stable coins or security tokens or tokenized securities, or there are many ways of phrasing it. Essentially, this is a digital twin or digital representation of a real world asset or security. Okay, simple example, $1 million house, asset, property, confirmed to be $1 million based on market, based on recent transactions and whatever, or based on a valuation, it's worth $1 million, right? So today, can you buy 1% of that $1 million house or 10% of the $1 million house? No, it's generally not possible. What you can do is you can set up a company that has 1 million shares that owns the property, and then you buy shares in that company. You all follow me so far? It's an SPV. So this SPV, the equity of this SPV can be reflected in the blockchain as tokens. It's the same thing. It's just representing it on the blockchain so that it is more, it is digital, but it represents the physical. So when it's digital, it is easy to move cross-border. It's easy to exchange because there's no physical thing to exchange. It's all online, right? It's just, sorry? Yeah, like a token, yes. Exactly. So, yes. So there are use cases already out there, but there are certain limitations. So we believe that this year, I believe that this year will be a tipping point for tokenization. You will start seeing huge use cases. We will start seeing scalability of tokenized solutions. And once that happens, then we will study it. We already have our own hypothesis on how to do it. But technology moves so fast, it's difficult to know which is the best option. And there's so many options, right? So alhamdulillah, we have a strong CTO who's really into the blockchain community. And once we see very good use cases, then we will develop our own based on that learnings as well. So what is the value of tokenization? As I mentioned earlier, it is international transfer, international exchange, because the token is essentially just data, right? Like I can send an email to you and you get data from me, correct? So in our system, we can exchange tokens. And not only that, some countries have already started giving approvals for tokenization. And typically it's equity crowdfunding because it's the logical step, right? You have shares, now the shares are on the blockchain, okay? So Bahrain has already started looking at tokenization. Malaysia has started looking at tokenization. Singapore and the UK have already allowed it from my understanding. So this is definitely the future that is already here, yeah? And the other part that's interesting, and this makes the whole crowdfunding opportunity very different, is that there will be secondary markets. Sure. Tokenization question? Yeah.
Can you give me a real example of tokenization?
Yes, the example of the property?
Indonesia,
No, we have not done it yet.
Ah.
This is 2021.
Yeah.
Future plan.
In Bahrain or on...
Yeah. So in Singapore, they're already doing it. Like what I said just now, there's a company that buys an asset, and the shares of the company is recorded in the blockchain as a token. So you can buy and sell shares of the company on the blockchain, right? That means it's a digital version of. You'll set the price and it's pegged to the asset.
Last year they announced here the
iDinar here in Qatar. Oh, I wasn't aware. Is that tokenization?
Yeah, but based on gold.
Based on gold, yeah. So it's pegged to gold. Gold is the underlying asset. Yeah.
I think it's only announcement without.
All right. Maybe they're working on it. I don't know. Is there Israel?
They announced it only. Nothing on the ground so far.
Oh, nothing on the ground. All right.
Who set up this?
It's ready, yeah? It's in the process. All right. Now, where am I just now? Oh yeah, secondary markets. So secondary markets basically is just the same as essentially a crowdfunding platform will be a mini stock exchange, right? Now companies can do their first issuance on my platform in Malaysia. I mean, not yet, but inshallah in a few months' time. But after that, the shares are already sold to the crowd. There's no clear exit usually, right? For us, we will have certain exit mechanisms, but in general, if you hold on to equity, you have to wait until there's some sale or somebody buys your shares or whatever, right? But if there's a secondary market, then you can sell it. Right? You can sell it in the secondary market.
It's like you are going to have your own digital currency.
Sort of, yeah. But it's not a currency, it's digital assets and collaterals. Yeah, digital securities of investments. You can put it that way. Yeah. There's a thin line today, I guess, between what's currency and what's tradable assets. You know, I think it's a bit technical. I won't go into that. But yeah, essentially, this secondary market can be a very good thing because it gives liquidity, right? So imagine next year you can buy property anywhere in the world through our platform. You can buy a fraction of the property on our platform, and then you can sell that fraction of the property, right? So anybody can invest in property now. But the problem with secondary market is then this invites things like speculation, invites, all these other dangerous stuff that creates bubbles. Yeah, derivatives and all that. I don't know whether it'll be allowed, but yeah, that's what happened to the stock markets, right? So I don't know what will happen in the future for equity crowdfunding platforms, right? Now the last point that I want to add, which is not here, and this is my last slide. After this, we'll have Q&A if there's any more questions. Is about the project onboarding. So what we do is, as I mentioned earlier, we focus vertical on vertical, right? We're trying to do many verticals, but we'll roll it out one at a time, right? Once we are confident, we have started working with the ecosystem, we understand the risk, we know how to structure it, we have the Sharia and the legal side clear, then we will start to build a technology solution around it. So for Indonesia, we have an app that's used by our team on the ground to collect data from developers, right? And from there, the app will actually do some risk scoring. At this point, we do not disclose it to the investors because we are still fine-tuning it, right? So the investors do not know what's the risk. There's no risk scoring, basically. If you like the project, you invest. If you don't like, you don't invest, right? But the risk scoring is very important. Okay, so I'll touch on the Indonesian project a little bit and show how it can be quite easily made into an app, right? The onboarding of projects, right? So what happens is you have, I give you simple numbers which are quite accurate. One project with 1,000 houses is about $10 million, the value of the project. One house is $10,000, right? This is the kind of houses we build in Indonesia for poor people. Right? The poor people, they make about $300 to $350, $400 per household. That's their income, right? US dollars, about $300, $400 per month. Yeah, per month. So the house is $10,000. If they go through the government program, they pay 1%, right, down payment, and then they get the house and they pay it over 20 years, right? So 1,000 houses, $10 million, all right? Now, we either come in at the start or in the middle, right? If it's a very good developer, very good track record, and we have track record with us or with our bank friends, then we can come in at the start, where we help them to finance, for example, paying for the land or getting the permits. And this project will typically take about 2 years, right, or 2.5 years. This is a musyarakah usually, or mudarabah, right? Because you're investing in the project from the start. Okay, so that's one kind of project that we do. If you go online, you will see one project like that. Yeah. Another kind of project that we do is we come in the middle. So the land is owned, the what you call it, the licenses and the permits are obtained, the construction has started. Okay, this is very interesting, and this is actually what attracts most of our investors. In Indonesia, the mortgage financing, the Islamic mortgage financing, only happens when there's a completed unit. They do not sell based on plan, right? When the unit is finished, the key is there, then they can sell to the bank. It's the murabaha. They sell to the bank sells to the customer. Maybe it's istisna, yeah. But they don't do it that way for the bank's mortgage. It only comes in 100% completion. We do istisna, but the bank doesn't. Yeah. So, yeah, typically, yeah. So, what happens is to build 1,000 houses, they're not going to build 1,000 at one time. They'll do 100 houses at a time, and then they finish 100. They get paid. They got cash flow. They'll build another round, right? So we come in to speed up that process. So instead of building 100, you can build 200. Yeah. So our crowd comes in. If you invest, you come in for 10% of the project, $1 million, right, to build 100 houses, right? So that's how it works. Usually, the bank is already there. The financing bank is already there. We will not approve this kind of project if the bank is not there. The customers are already there. usually at least a third of the units are already sold, then we will come in. Yeah, they'll pay a booking fee. So what happens is basically a closed loop, right? There are risks, but there's no market risk, there's no financing risk. The main risk is construction delays. Yeah, and that is the risk that has materialized in the end. Right? We had, just now I mentioned we have 0 defaults, but we had one failure. We had one failure that we recovered from. Right? So this was the worst case scenario where the developer misused the funds. Right? They misused the cash flow and hid a lot of information from our team. And over time, we saw there were issues because we check, we get reports every month, we go there every quarter, and we saw there's problems. So we investigated, and we found that the developer was misusing the funds. So what happened was we had to go into the recovery stage. Sat down with the developer, sat down with the government, sat down with the bank, discussed the solution, and eventually the solution was we could liquidate our collaterals. So we took over the entire project. Right? Our project management company had to take over the entire project. Took a long time, took about a year. The process took about 1 year, but we got the project. The assets are secure. There's still some funds available, so we continued the project, and now the project is close to completion. And because we managed to, we took a collateral more than the investment, actually people in the end, our investors make more profit. But they have to wait extra 1.5 years, longer. Right? So that is the beauty of property. That's why people want to invest in property. But if it's SMEs, if it's financing of businesses, then usually there's no collateral. Right? So the risk is that you can lose your money. Right? So I think I've come to the end of my presentation. I believe there should be some questions. But before that, do connect with me. I think some of you or most of you have my name card, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, I'm quite active. I try to share as much as I can. And from there, the network has become very good on LinkedIn. So just look for my name, Umar Munshi, and add me, and I'll try to approve everybody, inshallah.